Hi everyone, I'm Chyill and welcome back to another Battlerite guide video. In this next part of my quick tips series of videos where I try to briefly share some tips on improving various mechanics and decision making skills in Battlerite in their own separate videos, I'll be covering the topic of positioning, and so I'll basically just talk a little bit about positioning in general and then go on to give a couple of tips to help you improve on your positioning. Positioning in Battlerite is, I think, one of the skills that is quite often overlooked by some people, but it is arguably one of the most important things to be aware of and to be good at. So what is positioning and why is it important? Let me just show you an example of why positioning is important from my Ashka gameplay guide. Okay, the ray gun has used his spacebar, so I'm gonna try to go in and punish him if I can. Okay, that's not the best idea. Okay, that was the worst idea. That was the worst idea. Yeah. So as you can see in that clip, I had the right intention to try to quickly focus down the weak enemy player, and I sort of had an escape plan in mind. But ultimately my plan didn't turn out so well. I was immediately taken out, and that caused my team to lose the entire match. I know this example is a bit of an exaggeration to the whole poor positioning thing, since after all I did use my most reliable escape cooldown to jump into my enemies. Of course I was going to die. But what I'm really trying to get at here is that, say I didn't use my escape cooldown to jump into the enemy, and I'm just sort of doing my own thing, trying to deal damage from far away as Ashka. If I was in a poor position without my escape cooldown, say like I was far away from my teammates, my enemies could just as easily take the opportunity to jump onto me and deal as much damage as they can onto me because I was out of position and I was vulnerable. Good positioning is important because with good positioning, you're less susceptible to being targeted like that, or if you are targeted, you and your teammates are in a better position to deal with such an attack from the enemy. So how do we define good positioning? Have you ever had games where no matter what you do, it was hard for you or your teammate to try to focus down any one enemy, whether it be the enemy melee champion at the front or the enemy support at the back? The whole game, you're struggling to find for those openings in their defenses where you can go in and try to make a play happen. Even if the melee enemy in front seems to be vulnerable, after all he's right in the front and he's the nearest to your team, his teammates might be just behind him or near enough that they can respond, and so they can help him to fend you off should you try to fight against said melee champion. The same is true for the support at the back, since the melee at the front or the ranged teammate nearby could just as easily turn around to peel for the support. This situation is an example of good positioning practice by your enemies, since it is hard for you as an individual champion to realistically do significant damage to your enemy. You realize that you need you and your whole team working together to break that formation, to break that defense, just so you can do some true damage to your enemies. So basically, by practicing good positioning, you're essentially forcing your enemy to try to work together better so that they have a better chance at taking you down. Otherwise, they're mostly just going to fail if they come in alone. That's mostly just thinking in terms of team formation and covering for each other as a team, but if you factor in the map objectives, like the central orbs and the mini orange and green orbs, then you'll see that the team with better positioning around themselves and these crucial objectives will have a much higher chance of winning the round. So yeah, positioning is really important. Always think about it whenever you can, and make sure you're doing your best to be at the right position as much as possible. So right now you might be wondering, how do I improve my positioning, or at least how do I decide or determine in-game whether or not I'm positioning correctly and optimally? It's hard to say what is correct and what is wrong since the game state constantly changes and things are different from one second to the next. Your optimal position depends on your champion, your available cooldowns and abilities, your teammate's champion cooldowns and position, your enemy's champion cooldowns and position, the central orb and mini orbs, and so on. You kind of get the idea, I suppose. It's pretty much almost everything in the game. Every tiny bit of details plays a part in making a certain position the optimal one for you at any given time, and so having good positioning is quite a complicated thing to master, and it will take some game experience and time to be good at. However, with that being said, there are a couple of guidelines that you can follow to help let you make the best decisions in terms of your position in any given game. First things first, you want to make sure you know roughly what every champion in the game can do. This will help you picture their areas of influence, that is, the area in which they can affect you with their abilities and attacks, and this will in turn help you to decide where you want to be at any given time. For example, ranged enemies typically have large areas of influence since they can simply attack you from a distance. Areas of influence can change over time as well, since in the case of melee enemies with strong range projectiles and long range hooks like Rukan, these characters start off with large areas of influence, but their area reduces temporarily when these abilities are used and are on cooldown, since all they can do after that is attack you in melee range or something. So typically, you'll want to be within your allies' areas of influence as much as possible, and outside of your enemies' areas of influence whenever you're not prepared for a fight, because your abilities are not ready yet. So try to get into the habit of sticking with your team, since there is strength in numbers, while also being in a position to contest for the center of the map, especially if the central orb is spawning soon or has already spawned. What I just explained was pretty close to what I was talking about earlier in the video, where a lone enemy might find it very hard to penetrate your defense if you and your team has good positioning and you have good control of the center. Next up, another good habit to practice would be to think about your position before and after you make any major plays, like fully committing into an attack. Think about some of these questions in your head before you go on the offensive. Are your enemies in a vulnerable spot and you feel like you can take advantage of that? Will you be in a good position if you go in and try to do as much damage as you can? Are your teammates in a position and ready to back you up if you go in? After you make a couple of nice moves on your enemy, you did some nice damage, think again about your position. Are my teammates following up on this attack? Do I have any more cooldowns available to continue the fight? What happens if the enemy turns on me now? And what happens if his teammates come to back him up as well? Should I retreat now, or do I risk overextending and taking more damage than I should? So what I just listed were some example questions you can ask yourself before and after an attack, and these are just some basic ones. Battlerite is quite a hectic game, and so it might be quite hard to find the time within a round to think about so many different questions in your head. But trust me, you'll get better at doing it as you practice more and more and play more and more. In fact, once you get more comfortable with the basic ones that I just covered just now, you'll want to start thinking about some other questions within the round. Are my supports in need of help? Are the teammates I'm supporting in need of my assistance? Should I position myself better so that I can help out my teammate that is attacking the enemy more easily? Am I in a good position to get the central orb for my team? Or maybe can I position myself better to make it easier for my team to get the central orb? As you play more and have a deeper understanding of the game, you'll be able to come up with these questions yourself, because then you'll be able to prioritize what is more important in the round given the situation. Just remember my first point about playing close to your allies and playing close to the center of the map where all the orbs are, and these questions should naturally pop up while you're focused on playing the game well. There's no simple way of explaining good positioning, and so I'm sorry if it was a bit hard to understand. A significant amount of losses come from poor positioning, and so as long as you're willing to improve your game and you're willing to put in some time to maybe think a little bit about what you did wrong in matches where you lost, fix those mistakes and improve on your positioning, you will slowly realize your improvements in your own positioning. That's what I feel, at least. And so yeah, that's mostly on my quick tips video on positioning. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little video and found it useful. If you did, be sure to like, leave a comment below and share this video with your friends. Also, do look forward to more of these quick tips videos, since I'll be posting more of them in the coming weeks and they will cover different parts of Battlerite. And so yeah, until next time guys, I hope you guys have a great day, keep gaming, stay chill, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.